You make money. You're not irresponsible. You pay your bills. You show up to work. You do what you're supposed to do. And yet somehow, at the end of every month, you look at your bank account and wonder where it all went. You're not blowing cash on anything crazy. You're not living some extravagant lifestyle. But you still feel behind. Still feel like no matter how much you earn, it's never quite enough. And the worst part is, you can't even explain why.
Here's what most people never realize. The habits keeping you financially stuck aren't the obvious ones. They're not the big purchases or the reckless decisions. They're the quiet patterns running in the background of your mind, so automatic you don't even see them anymore. And until you understand what those patterns are and why your brain defaults to them, no budget spreadsheet in the world is going to save you. Quick note before we dive in. This video is for education and entertainment only and isn't personal financial advice. Now, here's what we're going to cover. I'm going to walk you through 5 specific money habits that quietly drain your wealth over time. But more importantly, I'm going to explain the psychology behind each one, the actual mental wiring that makes these habits so hard to break. And then I'll give you practical, realistic strategies to interrupt those patterns and start rewiring how you relate to money. This isn't about guilt or shame. It's not about cutting out coffee or punishing yourself into poverty so you can retire someday. This is about understanding how your mind actually works so you can use money as a tool to build a life you genuinely want to live. Because here's the thing. Most financial advice gets completely wrong. Money isn't the goal. Money is the tool. And right now, that tool might be quietly working against you. If you stay with me until the end, you'll walk away understanding your own blind spots and have at least 3 things you can change starting today. Let's start with something almost everyone does, but rarely talks about. Emotional spending disguised as self-care. You've had a long week. You're exhausted, stressed, and somewhere in your brain, a little voice whispers, you work hard. You deserve something nice. So you buy it. The new gadget, the spontaneous dinner out, the online shopping at midnight, because you just need a win. And in that moment, it genuinely feels earned. It feels like you're taking care of yourself. But here's what's actually happening inside your head. When you're stressed, your brain craves relief. It wants a quick hit of dopamine to balance out all that cortisol. And buying something new delivers that hit almost instantly. Your brain learns the pattern. Stress equals purchase equals temporary relief. The problem is that relief fades in about 15 minutes, but the financial consequences stick around much longer. This creates a loop that's incredibly hard to escape. Stress leads to spending. Spending creates financial pressure. Financial pressure creates more stress. And round you go, wondering why you can never seem to get ahead. Here's a different way to think about it. Instead of asking yourself, do I deserve this? Which is almost always going to be yes, try asking a different question. Does this purchase move me toward or away from the life I actually want? That question forces you to zoom out. It connects the small decision in front of you to the bigger picture of your life. Because every dollar you spend chasing quick relief is a dollar that can't buy you real freedom later. And freedom, having options, having time, having peace, that's what you actually deserve. One practical thing you can try is the 48-hour rule. For any non-essential purchase over $50, wait 2 days before buying it. If you still want it after the impulse has faded, consider it. Most of the time, you won't even remember what it was. Now here's a second pattern that's even sneakier, and it affects almost everyone who has ever gotten a raise or started earning more money. It's called lifestyle creep, and it might be the single biggest reason people feel broke, no matter how much they earn. Here's how it works. You get a promotion, your income goes up, and instead of that extra money going towards savings or investments or buying back your time, it just quietly disappears. Into a slightly nicer apartment, A newer car? More subscriptions? Better restaurants? Your paycheck got bigger, but somehow you still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck. The psychology behind this is something called hedonic adaptation. Your brain is wired to return to a baseline level of happiness, no matter what changes in your circumstances. That new car feels amazing for a few weeks, then it's just your car. The upgraded apartment loses its shine. And suddenly, you need the next upgrade to feel that same spark again. This is why you can find people earning $200,000 a year who feel just as financially anxious as someone earning $50,000. It's not about the number. It's about the gap between what you make and what you've trained yourself to need. But here's the part most people miss. Lifestyle creep isn't just about stuff. It's about identity. When you earn more, part of your brain wants to look like someone who earns more. You want your external life to match your internal sense of progress. This is status signaling at work. You're not just buying things, you're buying a story about who you are. And that story can get very expensive very fast. The solution isn't to live like a monk. It's to get intentional about which upgrades actually improve your daily experience and which ones are just expensive ways to perform success for other people. A useful question to ask yourself is this: would I still want this if nobody ever knew I had it? If the answer is no, that's a status purchase. And status is a game you can never win because there's always someone with more. Here's a practical strategy that works. Every time your income increases, automatically redirect at least half of that increase into savings or investments before it ever hits your checking account. Let your lifestyle improve, but at half speed. That way, you still feel the progress without losing all the gains. The third habit is something I call the tomorrow trap. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably fall into it more often than you'd like to admit. It's the belief that future you will handle it. You know you should start saving more. You know you should track your spending. You know you should open that investment account you've been thinking about. But not today. Today's too busy. Today's too stressful. You'll get to it next month, next paycheck, after this next thing settles down. This is present bias, and it's one of the most powerful forces in human decision-making. Your brain is wired to heavily favor immediate rewards over future ones. $100 right now feels more valuable than $150 a year from now, even though, logically, you know which one is better. This is why saving for retirement feels so hard. The future version of you feels abstract, almost like a stranger, and it's hard to make sacrifices for a stranger. Every time you tell yourself, "I'll start later," you're essentially borrowing from your future self. You're spending their money, their options, their freedom, and one day, future you is going to show up exhausted, wondering why past you didn't help them out. The key to beating present bias isn't willpower. Willpower fades. The key is automation and environment design. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So instead of waiting for future you to make the right choice, set things up so the right choice happens automatically. Automate your savings. Automate your investments. Remove the apps that make impulsive spending too easy. When the default is the smart decision, you don't need motivation to make it. And here's how this connects to designing a better life. Every dollar you automate into savings is a small vote for a future where you have options, where you're not trapped, where you get to choose how you spend your time instead of having circumstances choose for you. The fourth habit is harder to talk about because it goes deeper than behavior. It goes into identity. And it's something called the scarcity mindset. When you've experienced not having enough, whether that's right now or back in your childhood, your brain adapts. It becomes hyper-focused on survival, on getting through the next week, the next bill, the next crisis. And while that focus is useful in an emergency, it becomes a trap when you're trying to build something for the long term. Research has shown that scarcity actually reduces your cognitive bandwidth. When you're worried about money, your brain literally has less capacity for long-term planning and impulse control. This creates a painful cycle. Financial stress makes you worse at managing finances, which creates more financial stress, and it goes even deeper than that. If you grew up in a household where money was tight, where arguments about bills were common, where there was never quite enough, you may have absorbed beliefs you're not even aware of. Beliefs like money is hard to get, or rich people are selfish, or I'm just not good with this stuff. These beliefs become invisible scripts running your behavior. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of the habits keeping you poor aren't even yours. They're inherited patterns from your family, your environment, your past. Breaking the scarcity mindset isn't about positive thinking or repeating affirmations in the mirror. It's about creating new evidence that contradicts the old story. Start small. Build a tiny emergency fund, even if it's just a few $100s. Watch it grow. Let your brain experience the unfamiliar sensation of having a buffer, of having more than enough for right now. Then tell yourself a new story, not as fantasy, but as fact. I am someone who has resources. I am someone who can handle this. Because now you have evidence. And over time, your brain updates its model of reality based on that evidence. The fifth and final habit might be the most fundamental because in many ways it's the root of all the others. It's running your financial life on autopilot. Most people don't actively manage their money. They react to it. Paycheck comes in, bills go out, and somewhere in the middle things kind of work out. Or they don't. There's no tracking, no awareness, no intentional direction, just autopilot. This isn't a character flaw. It's how your brain is designed. Your mind tries to automate as much as possible to conserve energy. That's why you don't have to think about how to walk or how to brush your teeth. But the same mechanism that makes routine tasks effortless also makes bad habits invisible. You stop seeing the subscriptions you forgot you signed up for. You don't notice the small charges that add up. You lose track of where your money actually goes. The solution is scheduled awareness. Once a month, just once, sit down and look at where your money went. Not to judge yourself, not to feel guilty, just to see. Awareness by itself changes behavior. When you actually look at the numbers and realize you spent $400 on delivery food or $200 on random purchases you barely remember, something shifts. You don't need a lecture. You just need the data. And here's how this connects to life design. Money on autopilot usually means life on autopilot. If you're not conscious about where your money goes, you're probably not conscious about where your time and energy go either. Waking up from financial autopilot is often the first step to waking up to your whole life. Let me bring all of this together. We covered 5 quiet habits that drain wealth. Emotional spending disguised as treating yourself. Lifestyle creep that absorbs every raise. Present bias that keeps pushing action to tomorrow. Scarcity mindset that limits what you believe is possible. And autopilot that keeps you unaware of what's really happening. For each one, the fix isn't about grinding harder or punishing yourself. It's about understanding the psychology, designing better systems, and giving your brain new evidence over time. If any of this resonated with you, I want you to hear something. The fact that you've struggled with money doesn't mean you're bad with money. It means you're human, operating with a brain that wasn't designed for credit cards and targeted advertising and infinite options. You've been running software that was built for survival, not for thriving in a modern economy. But now you see it. And seeing it is the first step to changing it. Real financial change doesn't come from one big dramatic moment. It comes from small decisions, made consistently, that compound over time into a completely different life. So don't try to overhaul everything at once. Just pick one pattern, one habit. Start there, build momentum. Trust the process. understand your relationship with money a little better, and you want more content on the psychology behind financial decisions and how to design a life that actually feels like yours, consider subscribing to the channel. And before you click away, take a moment to ask yourself, which of these 5 habits shows up most in your life? Just naming it is a powerful first step. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.